the very first big trip I did with that setup, I was just like, oh, geez, this is not working super great. Like, I had to. And that was sort of the light bulb moment for us where we went, hey, wait a second. Like, I am so grateful to our customers and friends and, people who went and bought product off of our website because.
All right, guys, Giant Loop is in the house today. GiantLoopMoto.com and at GiantLoopMoto on both Facebook and Instagram. We're very fortunate to get an interview with Harold, and without further ado, let's get into it. Episode 54, Motorcycle Adventures Podcast. Thanks for listening.
And the sky just opened and it started dumping hail in buckets to the point that there was inches of hail standing on the road. And, it's the same predicament, like, do you stop? Do you just keep going? Like, what do you do? And, thankfully I had full riding gear on. So at least the hailstones were hitting my helmet and my padded jacket and everything and not pummeling me. But yeah, the temperature dropped like in just a few minutes, it dropped like 50, 60 degrees. And so I was like in mesh riding gear because it was hot. And then I was instantly soaked and just freezing to death. And then totally uncertain of like what my traction was like on the highway with 3 inches of standing hail on the road. And of course, every car on the road was just freaked out and pulling over. And it was just chaos. And I ended up just kind of riding slowly through it until I could get off the highway there in Tumlo and get back to the shop. But I got back here and I took my boots off and there were like hailstones coming out of my boots and stuff. It was insane.
Yeah, I actually remember that. I was driving on 97 that day and it looked like it had snowed on the highway. But same thing a couple weeks ago. And I know it was bad because I pulled off the highway on my bike and no cars went by me in either direction for about 10 minutes. It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, crazy.
And then I eventually got back up on the highway and my 790, I don't know if your 1090 has the rain mode or whatever, where it kind of detunes it. So I was like, all right, here we go. And there was a lot of standing water. And like you said, the road was covered in hailstones, but I got home. But man, I was stoked to get home when it was all said and done.
Yeah, for sure. Crazy stuff.
All right, let's go ahead and get into this. I could sit here and talk about crazy adventure riding stories till the end of time. But, I want to thank you for coming on, first and foremost. I know time is valuable, so to carve some time out of your day, we really appreciate it. I know the listeners will appreciate it. A lot of people want to hear this podcast. So you built this amazing business and really built it around having great products. So for you, when you jump on social media today and you see, or you literally see, people riding around the world or chasing their dreams, pursuing their passions with your products, I mean, what's that like for you? That's got to be a pretty amazing feeling.
Well, honestly, like that's always been kind of one of the coolest things about this whole deal at Giant Loop. It's like when we started in 2008, things like social media and stuff were still kind of newish. And so early on, it was mostly about forums and like the Adventure Rider Forum in particular, connected us with riders all over the world, and to me, like that's always been kind of one of my favorite aspects of the business is just that I have this, I literally have friends and customers and connections, all over the world now. And, there are a bunch of places I could just, if I could afford the plane ticket to get there, I would have somebody to give me a bike and take me riding if I can get there and stuff. And, it's just it's really gratifying. I mean, nobody gets rich in motorcycling. This is not it's not pharmaceuticals. It's not software. We're not getting rich here. We're doing it because we love it. Right. Exactly. All of us.
Exactly.
And so, it's really gratifying. And I still just get a kick out of it whenever I hear a motorcycle ride by, I always look like, hey, do they have any Giant Loop gear on their bike? Right. It's still just, it's thrilling and rewarding when you see your work in action and enabling people to do these amazing trips and adventures and stuff. Like that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's
Right on. Very cool. So before we dive in deep in on the business, I want to know if we can rewind a little bit and just kind of understand where you got your start in motorcycling.
Yeah, motorcycles have been a part of my life almost as long as I can remember. My dad rode a motorcycle. He commuted on his little Honda CB77. In fact, it's sitting in our showroom now. So some of my earliest memories were of like riding on the back of his motorcycle. He'd come pick me up at daycare or whatever. And I loved it so much I'd fall asleep on the back of the bike and stuff. And, he'd be holding on to me with one arm and trying to ride with the other and stuff. And I had an uncle also who raced dirt bikes and worked in motorcycle shops a little bit. So he kind of kept us in hand-me-downs and stuff. So like, my sister and brother and I, we had a little rigid frame. I think it was called a Kawasaki Coyote, and it was like a little rigid frame, like pull handle start, like mini bike that my uncle had gotten at, it came into the shop he was working at or whatever. And so he basically sold it to my dad super cheap, I think was probably what happened. And we had like a little half-acre lot next to our house, and we would just ride this little oval, like dirt circle, lap after lap after lap, like on that little mini bike and stuff. And then that sort of led to us getting like little Honda Z50 and, wow, then we had gears and so my grandparents here in Bend, my grandpa had like 3 or 4 like trail 90s and, little Honda step throughs and so we'd go just poke around like here on the outskirts of Bend or when we're up camping at the lakes and stuff. So, motorcycling has just always been, a part of my life. I mean, and it's always been my favorite way to just escape, I guess you could say, even as a kid, I could jump on my little mini bike and go have like an hour of independence, like playing in the woods or whatever. And as an adult, it sort of evolved into, riding for transportation. I didn't even own a car till I got married.
Oh, wow.
I used to strap my trombone across the back of one of those Honda Trail 90s and ride it to school with my trombone strapped across the back. And I traded a skateboard for my first like real road bike, which is a total basket case. This Honda 360 is a CJ 360T, I think it was. And the thing had just been sitting on the streets of San Francisco in front of a friend's apartment, and somebody had tried to steal it, and they unthreaded the spark plugs, and they ripped out the ignition switch. Like the cylinders were literally full of rainwater when I got it and stuff. And so I traded the skateboard. I hauled it back to Santa Cruz where I was going to school at the time, and spent an afternoon. I dumped like gum out right into the cylinders, the spark plug holes, and just pushed it down the alleyway, letting all the water pump out of the cylinder head, and threaded some new spark plugs in there. I had bought like the little climber's manual for it. So I looked at the wiring diagram and figured out how to hot wire it. And I coasted it down the street I was living on. I lived at the top of a hill, and I was like, okay, please start, because I don't want to have to push the bike back up the hill again. And sure enough, that Honda started by the time I got to the bottom of the hill, and it ran for like years after that, Wow. And so, that was my first road bike. And then that was, just kind of set in motion a progression of bikes and so on. And when I moved back to Bend, I had sold off my street bike, and when I moved back here, I was like, gee, I need a dirt bike with a license plate. That's the perfect bike for around here. Mm-hmm. And so I started talking to some friends who were dual sporting at the time, and about like what I should get and stuff like that. And I found a great deal on a used XR 600R. It's a 1998. I bought it in 2000. It basically had scared the previous owner. It was like too much bike for him. And so he basically, and he was about my size. So not only did I get the bike, but I got all the riding gear with it and stuff. And so that was kind of what sent me down the path of dual sport riding. and just wanting to take off and explore this area and, head out on big rides out into the desert and up into the mountains. And that was kind of the roots and origins of Giant Loop, was figuring out how to carry gear,
Yeah. And that was my next question. How did this all become about? Because if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned to me that this originally started where you were looking at creating like a touring company, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. A local buddy of mine, he was actually into the dual sport thing before I was. And he had an idea that because of the adventure rider forum, we knew that we had kind of a special thing here, in that, like, in Europe, those riders have to go to places like Tunisia or Morocco or something to do the kind of riding that we have right out our back door. And so early on we started looking, originally Giant Loop was going to be a tour company, and with the idea that, like a motocross track is kind of a tiny loop, and then maybe a trail ride's like a bigger loop. And, but we wanted to do a giant loop tour, and go, from here to Nevada on the dirt bikes kind of thing. So that was actually what sparked the original creation of the name and the logo and so on. But the more we looked into that, the more we realized that required money, which is something we've never had. It required like startup investment capital, like to get a chase vehicle and, et cetera, et cetera. So that sort of got backburnered and never really came to fruition. But we were playing around with like bag designs, and because we both came from an outdoor industry background. We had some friends, like a local company here, Matoli's Mountain Products. We knew this guy over here who was a sewer, and we started getting him to sew some bags, because when I first got that XR, I was literally just taking my old street bike throw over saddlebags and just throwing them across the back of the XR, kind of strapping a little rafting dry bag on top. And, and that was initially how I was carrying gear. And it just, the very first big trip I did with that setup, I was just like, oh, geez, this is not working super great. I literally had to undo a bungee cord on the one side and hold the pannier out of the way so I could kickstart the bike. So every single time I had to kickstart the bike, I had to unhook the pannier and start the bike and rehook the saddlebag. And so, it's like, wow, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so that kind of set in motion this, hey, let's start, playing around with some ideas and just making our own stuff, because back in, this would have been the mid 2000s. They're just early 2000s. Even there really wasn't, there weren't a lot of options out there. I mean, Wolfman, all credit to Eric. Like, he was kind of the pioneer in the space, but, and then there were a couple other little companies, a company called Dirt Bags, but the best thing that I could say about them was that they were cheap. But we'd just see stuff like that just get shredded and destroyed out in the desert. We'd go riding with friends who had hard luggage, and they'd drop it in a pile of rocks and bust all the mounts off. Or, we just saw all the various kind of pluses and minuses of everything. And we were like, gee, I think we can do better than this. And so initially it was just, bolting little bags onto the plastics of the dirt bike. And then my buddy got a KTM 525. And one of the unique features about that bike was that it had a one-piece rear plastic. So instead of side panel, rear fender, it was one continuous piece all connected together, the two side panels and the rear fender. And that was sort of the light bulb moment for us, where we went, hey, wait a second, like, we could do the same thing, with a bag that they did with the fender. We could just, instead of having bags on each side and one in the middle, you could just connect them all into this continuous shape. So that was kind of that was the light bulb moment. That was the design that, as soon as we made that design and started riding with it, we were like, okay, now we're on to something. Like, this is really unique, and it just instantly solves a bunch of problems. keeps the weight really close to the center of the bike, keeps it super stable, doesn't require a bunch of heavy mounts or any of that stuff, fewer parts to break. And so, that was kind of, where it all started. And, I, for the first time in my life ever, I had a little bit of money in the bank because I had done a refi on my house here and pulled out a little equity. And so, ended up like paying for contacting another friend from the outdoor industry, a company called Roughwear that's here in Bend.
Oh yeah.
And the owner, Patrick, I had worked for him in the past and stuff. So he put us in touch with a sewing contractor in Southern California. We got a hold of them and sent them like a prototype that we'd been riding with, and ordered up 150 of them. And we had people literally like waiting in line to get them. As soon as we, posted it on the Adventure Rider Forum that we were producing them and going to make them available. So we put up a simple little website, and we were pretty much instantly off and running. Within a couple months, in fact, I was contacted by Adventure Moto in Australia about importing our products there, and we work with that company to this day. I was also contacted almost immedately by Adventure Spec in the United Kingdom, and they've been our importer ever since there. So yeah, like you said, this. I went into it with zero expectations, and in fact, pretty much thought it would just be a little side job. And then here I am 12 years later, and we're small, but we're holding our own, and we've got 6 of us working here. And I just feel really grateful to be able to, make a living doing something that I'm passionate about and love. That's the coolest thing ever.
Okay. Yeah, I want to go back and ask you about the social media side of things. Like you said, when you started, obviously that just wasn't even a thing, but nowadays it is. Obviously that's had to have helped you grow the business, right?
Oh, for sure. So, my background was I was basically a writer. That's what I studied. I worked in journalism for a while, and then I kind of transitioned into marketing. And so I was doing a lot of marketing for, small outdoor companies and stuff like that. And, the consistent theme among small businesses is that none of us have a lot of money to throw at our problems. So we have to be creative. And so I was what you might call an early adopter of social media for that reason. Like I went to a marketing conference here in Bend where one of the executives of Facebook did a whole presentation about like how Facebook worked and as an advertising tool. And this was back in like 2006, maybe 2005.
Oh, geez.
Like really early on. And so I was like, well, that sounds like a tool I need to like start using and understanding so I can put it to work for my clients and customers. And so, from the get-go, basically Giant Loop became, we used marketing the same way that I had, used marketing to help my other small business clients. It's like, well, if all it takes is the time and energy to go make it happen and it doesn't take a lot of money, well, that's great bang for the buck, right? And so,
sure.
So we really focused actually on things like the forums, social media, just actively participating in these communities, and back then it wasn't even a pay to play kind of thing. Now Facebook and stuff has kind of become more of a pay to play proposition. Back then it was mostly just about engaging with people and getting content out there and stuff. So tools like Facebook, it's kind of a love-hate relationship, honestly. But it's our lifeblood, and it always has been. And so, we work all the social media channels, and it's really been, the one of the most efficient ways for us to reach new customers and grow the business.
Sure, and there's no denying that's where the customers are. Everybody's there, right? Personally, I can get a little bit overloaded with social media from time to time, but yeah, kudos for jumping on that early. I think that was a huge advantage. I wish I'd have seen that myself personally a lot sooner.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like, for years and years, I basically was doing all of Giant Loop's marketing. And, frankly, it just gets a little exhausting. Like when you have to be like, immersed in it every day. And like, and I also sort of struggled, like, quite honestly, I still do, like I take things very personally, this is my baby, man. This is my life's work. And so it's really hard for me sometimes to be the person on the front lines, like having to deal with people's crappy comments or whatever. And so just recently I've been able to sort of get some help. So I now have Paolo Cantaneo, who's like a world traveler that we've worked with for the last 5 years as a supported writer. And so I was actually able to recruit him he's now managing our Facebook page and our Instagram channels. And it's worked out great because it gives him a source of income. It's work that he can do while he's traveling and on the road. And it's just been a tremendous sense of relief for me, frankly, not having to be quite so immersed in that stuff on a daily basis and stuff. So, but yeah, it's been, fundamentally, crucially important to us because we've just never had the luxury of throwing money at our problems. I don't have the kind of budget that allows me to buy big full page ads in, magazines or that sort of thing. So, social media has proven to be a very efficient tool for us, for sure.
Hey, I got a question for you, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but if you had to throw $100 at a magazine ad or $100 at a social media ad these days, which one would you choose?
Well, $100 doesn't get you very far in terms of like, especially in terms of print. Like that's going to, if you're lucky, you might get a little postage stamp size ad or something in one issue somewhere, for $100 or whatever. Whereas like that same $100, might generate a handful of sales, that pretty much instantly pay for the investment, and so I love print. Like it's my background. I worked for a magazine publisher, in my early days down in the Bay Area. I used to write a lot of music reviews and travel stuff, and I really love print. But the print media is really, it's really struggled to find a relevant place in today's market, and with all the demands and competition for people's attention and so on. And so, so we still believe in print. We support, but I guess we kind of view print and some of the other sort of more kind of traditional advertising. I view that as much about supporting our sport and our industry and sort of giving some love back to the people who give us love, as anything. So, I think that there's no question that in terms of just raw bang for the buck, it's pretty tough to beat things like social media. But not everybody's on social media. And we, I've always taken the approach that marketing's not about any one channel. It's about having a very comprehensive approach that reaches people in all the various spaces where they are and where they're getting information. So, we're advertisers in Adventure Motorcycle Magazine. We're advertisers in the BMW Owners News. We're advertisers in Dirt Bike, ADV Pulse. Let's see, a couple of other online publications. And we believe in it. We want to see them thrive and succeed as well. Like I think it's good for the support if there's like a vibrant kind of mediascape and stuff. So especially in the face of like, publications disappearing and stuff, I've really felt almost like a need for me to step up and support some of these people that I, have given us a lot of support over the years.
Yeah, it's been weird, growing up as a kid. I'd subscribe to the whatever 4 or 5 dirt bike motocross magazines. It's kind of weird to see those things kind of fade away over time. And personally, I don't really like reading a lot of stuff on the computer if I can avoid it. So I still like that touch of a magazine, but times have definitely changed.
Yeah, definitely.
So you talked about having Paulo run your social media. You mentioned you got, 6 employees now?
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk us through the roles or positions that everybody holds there?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm here working every day. I'm just another worker here at Giant Loop. I get a salary. So my focuses are on, kind of the bigger picture stuff and product development and marketing, sales and marketing. So those are kind of my focus areas. Then, and I have our longest employee, the one who's been with us since almost the beginning, is Paul, our production manager. And I've known Paul for, 25 years or something. So he's been working with us pretty much right from the beginning. And so he's really grown and evolved along with the company. He started out as just our shipping guy. Because when we first started, we had no idea like what we're doing and he had a little e-commerce business at the time. It's like, well, he's got it all figured out. Why don't we just pay him to handle the shipping and fulfillment part of it or whatever? And then as we grew, I was like, well, how about if you just come work for us? And so yeah, Paul's been here from the get-go. And now his role has evolved, and he's more the guy who coordinates everything with our vendors and suppliers. He helps kind of with our production, like ordering and forecasting, our costing, a bunch of super critical, important roles here. In fact, the joke here is, and this applies to me too, if you have a question, just go ask Paul, because nobody here knows more about the ins and outs of the business than he does, myself included. Like, QuickBooks, go ask Paul, whatever. So, yeah, Paul's just instrumental and awesome. Ryan Eguskiza joined us a couple of years ago, and he had a really solid background in trail riding and motocross. In fact, he has in his past he had ridden as a pro mountain bike rider and. Had some good industry experience, worked for Liat for a while before he ended up here. And so he's, he helped get customer service and the sale, a lot of the sort of day-to-day sales stuff off of my plate. Cause prior to him, I most of that still was on my plate. I was the guy answering customer service emails and stuff like that. And so it's been awesome having him here, having, that part of the business just handled. And he's very good with customers and has good, knowledge of motorcycling. And so, yeah, that's been, Ryan's been a good asset to the team here. And then, Dan Warmke is our operations manager. Dan is another one of those people that I just feel super grateful to have here. He brought a ton of bigger company production, management experience. So he's our ops guy, our operations manager, and he works here half time. The other half the time he's managing a bicycle rental company and stuff. But he kind of just makes sure that we're all moving in the same direction in a coordinated fashion, and that we're one of our goals as a business is that we're constantly trying to build systems and processes and then improve them. And so he's kind of the master of all of that stuff. And so he kind of oversees a lot of the operational side, the warehouse and that sort of thing. And then Jeff is our shipping and receiving lead out in the warehouse, and he joined us, I think, about a year ago or so, and he's just been doing an awesome job out there. He's the guy to thank for getting your order out. He and Ryan are the ones that get orders out the door like clockwork every day. And then rounding out the team is Brendan Carlson here. He's he's worked with us for about 3 or 4 years on kind of a part-time and as needed basis. But the thing that's awesome about Brendan is like it's really hard to find someone who has the perseverance and patience, I guess you could say, to just sit at a workstation for an entire day, like checking in product and assembling and doing QC and stuff. But that's his jam. And he just puts on headphones and just kind of, goes to the zone, and he'll sit there all day. So he's the guy you have to thank for, making sure that we're catching any quality issues before they go out the door. He does the final assembly, and gets everything prepared for it to go to customers. So I think that I covered everybody. I think that's the whole team in terms of who we have here in the house. And then we have some pretty key like contractors that we've worked with for many years as well that I think are probably, they're essentially staff, like, and so they're deserving of a shout out too. So Chuck, he's our graphic artist, and I've worked with Chuck and known Chuck for 25 plus years. He's an extraordinarily talented graphic artist and illustrator. And I've always felt like he's kind of our little secret weapon, because he makes all of our marketing materials look super pro and stuff. And then of course, Lindsay Clark is, she's our design director. So she's my primary collaborator with respect to product development and so on. So Lindsay comes to us with decade plus of experience in the outdoor industry. She has like a really nice list of freelance clients, most of them other outdoor companies, many of them here in Bend, in fact. And so she's just instrumental in helping us, in the last couple of years, really kind of push our product development and designs forward. I kind of consider them to be, critical, members of our team as well.
Awesome. Sounds like a great group to work with. I want to pull back again for a second. You had that original product that you advertised on Adventure Writer, if you will. So to this day, is that still your favorite product, or have you guys developed something else that you would label as just that?
Well, to this day, I really think that we really pioneered that horseshoe-shaped saddlebag design. Now other people have kind of taken that basic concept and they've done their own variations on the theme and stuff. But, so for me, that is still sort of it's kind of our core, and our essence. We've come a long way since that one product. I think we now have something like 30 SKUs or something in our product line. And I guess if I had to pick something else that I think is sort of a defining product for us, at the moment, I'd have to say it's our Gasbag products.
Yeah.
We're literally the only company in the United States making these flexible fuel bladders in these small sizes that make them so that you can carry them on a motorcycle or other power sports platforms. And I literally had to beg the company that makes the bladders for us. I had to beg the president of the company for 4 years. Hey, I've got this idea. Would you help me make it? For 4 years, I'd check in with him hey, man, where are you at with this? Are you ready? Can we make this thing now? And so finally, when he became the company president, then he was able to greenlight the project, and that's how we were able to get them into production. I think almost 5 years ago now. So those are a very unique product. It's been an incredible learning process. Getting them into production and continuing to, improve and refine them and building them out. And we now have 4 different sizes. And I feel a sort of personal connection to every one of our products. They're all kind of my children in a way, because I've been so hands-on and intimately involved in the design and development of all of them. But yeah, I really do think that at the present moment, like that the gas bags are kind of one of our other, real innovations in our market space. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Little note on the gas bags. I was riding with a couple of gentlemen this past weekend. They both have big GSAs, and they're getting ready to go ride at least a portion of the Continental Divide. And I had the 1 gallon with me, and I topped off, and they're like, wow, I've never seen anything like that. And I said, yeah, I don't think there is anything else like this. And I said, the nice thing about it is after I dumped the gas out of it, I rolled it up really small and tucked it away. I mean, when space is at a premium, we all seem to find a way to fill up our bags. It's nice to have something like that can extend the ride, but again, it's also pretty compact when you're done with it.
Yeah, for sure. And we had used all kinds of other fuel solutions over the years, and just really feel like this has so many advantages, just the weight and the simplicity of it. And it doesn't require any heavy brackets or mounts or anything. So, it's a real problem solver. And, our customers for those products now include people like the Navy and, let's see, search and rescue, like the U.S. State Department. Like we've that product is so unique that we've had these at least small sales into individual units of military and so on too. So I just think that it's a product that has a lot of legs, so to speak, and we're really just getting started with it.
Yeah, and I'm seeing it more, at least on social media, with I'm seeing overlanders use it and people with side-by-sides too.
Yeah, and that's really what the bigger versions of it were all about. We wanted to scale up. We started out with the 1 and 2 gallon sizes, primarily targeted at motorcycles. But so we developed the 3 and 5. The 3 gallon sort of came about because that's the typical size of a gas can on the back of a snowmobile. Mm-hmm. And so, so that one was kind of for, quad side-by-side snowmobiles. And then like the big 5 gallon really is intended to, for like overlanding, 4x4s. We work with a company that Off the Grid Expeditions. They're based out of Southern Cal, and they run these side-by-side tours like the full length of Baja. Like you get to go ride, in a tricked out sport UTV, the full length of Baja, just railing through the whoops and dust coming over the hood and like the whole bit, a really legit kind of tour, not just a little tourist like putt out of Cabo kind of thing. But so those guys, like they were like super stoked about those 5 gallon bags, and they use them for all their tour operations and stuff. So, it really just helped us reach into like kind of a new group of customers too. So that's been important for us.
Okay. Wanted to ask you about some of the giant loop rides you have. I know you've had them up around East Lake, but the big one, the one at Crystal Crane, which is postponed this year till September. But what can you tell people who haven't been to that ride about it?
Yeah. So, I honestly was really sad because this last weekend was for the last 8 years in a row. The first weekend in June has been our annual ride. And it's my favorite event of the whole year. I love it. It's like, it's like a family reunion to me. I just, so the thing's steadily grown and evolved over the years. But, so we're on track right now for it to be the biggest event we've done yet. This is our 9th year doing it. Because of the whole COVID thing, we decided just to play it safe and pushed off to September. So there's still plenty of time to get signed up and come join us. A couple of years ago, we actually started incorporating some industry friends. So we have kind of a little vendor row and stuff. So that's been kind of fun and has built it out into more of an event or a rally. But yeah, we basically get together out at a really remote part of Oregon. And there's this neat little, resort, hot springs resort campground there called Crystal Crane. And the people there have just been awesome hosts. They have tons of space, so we can, and because we've worked with them for so long and stuff, they basically just give us like acres, like, however many people we can, get to come to the ride. There's plenty of space, and it just makes a really nice kind of central location to stage everything from. So yeah, we everybody kind of rolls in on Friday. Feed everybody dinner, get everybody kind of oriented. Saturday's the big ride day. We have a big library of GPS tracks, so people can kind of pick and choose the kind of ride they want to go do, and that location is just a great jumping off point to go explore a lot of different areas of that kind of southeastern Oregon. And so, like the Alvord Desert and Steens Mountain to the south, and then heading east, you can ride clear out to the Owyhee, the river that kind of runs along the Oregon-Idaho border. It's super remote. Like that track is like, I think it's 90 miles one way on dirt to get to the river. And so that, you better make sure you have enough gas to get back. And then, heading north, you can go up into the Malheur and the Ochocos, up into Ponderosa Pine Forest and the mountains and stuff. So, depending on the weather and what kind of riding you want to do, you can just pick the kind of day you want to have and the group you want to ride with. And so everybody goes out and rides, has an awesome time, come back, have a big dinner, give out some prizes, hang out around the campfire. We feed everybody a couple dinners, a couple breakfasts. We hire a caterer out of Burns, Oregon. And so, yeah, I love it. It's just a party. It's just an excuse to get together with friends and go ride some really unique country. I mean, that's literally one of the most remote parts of the lower 48 states out there.
So for those who are listening, that is, you guys still have spots available, and that's rescheduled for September 18th through the 20th, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and we'll be taking signups. Well, actually, we'll take signups right up to the end. We offer the ability to kind of reserve your spot with a deposit, and as long as you cancel by the deadline, you can get your deposit back. But yeah, we're taking the signups now. There's a full vendors list on the web page. Because we delayed it, I think we're going to be able to probably put together a few more tracks for our library. So maybe people who have come in the past will have some new stuff for them to ride. And yeah, we'd love to have you join us. Like, to me, I can't wait. I think it's going to feel like a real celebration this year after all the craziness we've all had to deal with, right? So.
For sure. I wanted to ask you about that. Obviously, you're probably having to do business a little bit differently with COVID-19, but has it impacted you at all? I've talked to some other people in the space, and things are better than usual in regards to sales. Yeah,
it's been pretty interesting, having to manage this whole thing. So really early on, we said most of us are working remotely now, except for the warehouse component, but we have enough space that it's easy to spread out and stuff. So we didn't have too hard a time sort of transitioning to managing the business that way. But early on, what happened was we had actually had a pretty solid first quarter. And initially, with the stay-at-home orders and stuff, like our dealer sales, our distributor sales, and our export sales essentially just fell off a cliff. They just went away. And so initially, it just essentially wiped out all the gains that we had made in the first quarter of the year. But then as things progressed, like I think that there were so many people sitting at home shopping that the online shopping thing just went ballistic. And so, we saw significant growth on our website sales. And honestly, it saved us. Like, I am so grateful to our customers and friends and, people who went and bought product off of our website, because what that meant is, I was actually one of the lucky ones who got in on the payroll protection loan program.
Okay.
So we did not ever have to lay anyone off here. We were able to pay our bills, and we were actually even able to make some forward progress financially as a company, despite all this craziness. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting little, experiment, I guess, for lack of a better word, but yeah, those web sales are saving our bacon and keeping everybody working. So thank you so much, everybody.
All right. Shout out to all the customers.
Yeah.
I got a social media question here from Anna. Then I want to ask you some stuff about yourself. She was curious about where the go light, go fast, go far came from.
Well, again, my background's marketing and writing and stuff. So I used to get paid to write this kind of stuff all the time, like for people. And so for me, yeah, exactly. So I just felt that, that phrase just really sort of, in a fairly succinct way, summarized like our philosophy about traveling on a motorcycle and packing on a motorcycle, and in fact, kind of our thought process and philosophy around product design. So we want stuff to be light. Like when I was a kid, like I was super into bicycles. I toured on a bicycle before I ever toured on a motorcycle. And, in that universe, it's a game of grams. Like people shave every gram they can off of a bicycle, right? And especially if you're carrying camping gear or whatever on a bicycle, you're cutting the handle off your toothbrush kind of thing. Like, and so I never really understood people's inclination to want to put heavy stuff on a motorcycle, right? Like, everybody else works so hard to strip weight away, like the engineers and, and everybody else. It's like, well, then you're just putting it right back on again. And like, I think people grossly underestimate the impact of weight on the performance and handling of the bike, right? So, yeah. So that's the kind of light component. Like lighter's better. Like, we just think that's kind of true across the board. So go light, go fast. The other thing, the go fast component is that we wanted to build products that didn't sort of begin to dictate how we rode. Like we wanted to go out in the desert and cover serious ground and stuff. Like, so, I've ridden from Bend, the Black Rock Desert to Bend in a single day on dirt. That, like, to this day, that's like one of the longest days on dirt I've ever done. Close to 500 miles, I think. And so, you can't do that. You can't go fast like that if your stuff is vibrating to pieces or bouncing around and all that stuff. We wanted to make products that are literally stable and out of the way and rugged enough that people can even use them for racing applications. So that's kind of the fast thing. Like, we didn't want to be... We used to sort of derogatorily call it sit down putt riding, which actually I've really grown to love and embrace sit down putt riding, I have to say, because that's the only way you can really enjoy the scenery. But like, we wanted to build stuff that you stand up on the foot pegs and roost, so that's the fast component. And then the go far thing, like from the very beginning, we wanted to be helping enable people to do big trips and big adventures. And early on, one of my big goals was like, I can't wait till we get a product that goes around the world with somebody. Like, to me, that's the ultimate giant loop, right? It's going around the world. And so, yeah. And now, 12 years later, we've worked with multiple people who've ridden around the world with our gear and stuff. So, we wanted it to last. We wanted it to go the distance and to enable these big adventures. So I guess that's kind of how we look at that slogan and kind of the origins of it. Yeah,
that's a pretty good summary too. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but do we expect anything new coming out from you guys or updated this year in terms of products?
Well, so we do have a couple little things in the works right now. I mean, we already early in the year we introduced our new buck and roll tank bag, which has just been like one of the best, like most successful new product introductions for a while. Like we instantly, well, we had a bunch of the first production sold before it ever arrived here. And then we pretty much instantly sold out of it. In fact, we're sold out now, waiting for the next batch. So that tank bag was a kind of a hole in our product line that hadn't been filled for a couple of years when we let the previous buck and roll go out of production. And so that's been awesome. We also this year, started producing pronghorn straps that are our own design and our own manufacturing. So we were able to specify exactly the qualities that we wanted in these straps, and the shapes and everything, and do a fully giant loop polyurethane stretch strap, our new pronghorns. So those also have been, for me, that's been really exciting just because it's been a long time coming. Like, a lot of product development, maybe people don't realize it pretty much just boils down to having the money to get stuff into production and pay for tooling. And there's always startup costs and development costs. And for us, that's always been our biggest challenge is, lacking capital. Like we have to do everything in a very incremental sort of way. So it's always such a great, moment when that year or two of work, comes to fruition with the first production. So those new product introductions have been really, great start to the year. And then we have some other nice little updates in the pipeline. We're, updating the graphics on a number of our products, and you'll begin to see those roll out here in the next couple months. We'll have a couple new designs to choose from for our Bushwhacker Handguards.
Okay.
Kind of a sleeper product for us in a way, but like, anybody who's ever used them in like cold, wet, rainy, snowy, whatever kind of riding conditions, they're hand savers. Those things are awesome. So yeah, we'll have a couple new just kind of graphics and stuff in the works for this year on those. And then I have a couple other things, but I probably need to reserve announcing them for later.
Sure.
Honestly, one of the things that's kind of one of the hard lessons I've had to learn over the last 12 years is because I'm just kind of I'm an open and trusting kind of person. And we've just over the years repeatedly had people just straight up, swipe designs and stuff like that from us. And so, yeah, I'm my own worst enemy with respect, because I'm always so excited to tell people about the stuff we're working on and developing and stuff. And so a couple of years ago, basically, Lindsay actually said, okay, no more. Until that production order is placed and production's on its way, don't share publicly, like outside the building, what we're working on. So yeah, so stay tuned. We've got a couple other cool tricks in the bag yet for 2020 for sure.
Okay. Very cool. Looking forward to that. A couple questions for you before I let you go. What are some of your favorite places to adventure ride?
Oh boy. It's pretty tough to beat our backyard, as you know.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it here. And I have the good fortune of living on the edge of town, and the pavement ends a mile from my house. And that's kind of what got me excited about the dual sport thing in the first place. And so, it's really tough to just beat our own great state of Oregon, frankly. I so love it. And I never get tired of it. And even though I've seen most of it, there are still places that I haven't been to. So, that's still tops on my list. But man, like Baja was super cool. I would love to go back and do some more riding in Baja. My family's kind of origins are in Norway on my mother's side. And so I had the chance to go ride in Norway a couple of years ago. And I'm really itching to go back and do a Norway trip. And my cousin, who also lives here, we're talking about going over and doing a motorcycle trip, Norway here one of these days. I had the good fortune of riding in Australia a couple times because of we do a lot of business in Australia. And man, if you ever get the chance, like Australia is just amazing. And it's super easy for us as Americans to travel in Australia. Even though they speak with a funny accent, we still speak the same language and stuff.
It helps.
Yeah, and the Aussies are just cool, friendly people, and it's just such a vast country. I mean, it's very much like the American West. And in fact, a lot of times when I'm riding down there, I'm like, wait, I feel like I'm in California or something, but yeah, really spectacular. And I was supposed to be going on a ride in the fall with a group of friends from Australia, including this guy, Dave Darcy, who's pretty big YouTuber, Mad TV is his channel. So he was kind of organizing this ride and had invited a group of us to join him for the last part of it. And so I was supposed to this year fly into Nepal and rent a little Royal Enfield, and we were going to ride up to Everest Base Camp together. And so that was supposed to be my big trip this year, and sadly it got canceled. So, but to me, travel is just so rich, and just any travel, local travel, international travel, just getting out and seeing this amazing world we're in. Like, that's really what it's about for me. And I struggle to think of places that I wouldn't like to travel other than kind of war zones,
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. That was going to be my next question. Is there somewhere you haven't been or you haven't ridden yet that you've got your eyes on too?
Oh man. I've got to tell you, South Africa is pretty high on the list.
Well, I'm about ready. In 30 minutes, I'm going to interview a KTM ambassador from South Africa.
Ah, sweet. Yeah. And
I'll ask her about it.
Yeah. We work with a great little company down there called Flying Brick / Floating Wheel. There are importers there, really solid people. But what a spectacular country, and we have friends that have run tours there and stuff. And so, yeah, that's always been on my list. But even closer to home, honestly, like I haven't really spent much time in Colorado or Utah. Like those are definitely on my list of places that I need to explore some more. Every time I ride in Nevada, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. Like I need to ride more in Nevada. Like, we have it pretty good right here, too.
Yeah.
So.
It's pretty easy to not leave here and check all the boxes. I think you and I last year had a pretty good discussion about riding in Idaho, particularly around the Stanley area, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah. Stanley, like Idaho is just like one of the most epic places to ride ever. I mean, and it's endless and it can be super gnarly technical single track if you want, or if you want to go tackle a tour of Idaho or something like that, or it can just be like an incredible gravel roads for miles and stuff. So no, Idaho is right up there too, for sure.
All right, man. I don't want to overstay my welcome, but I really appreciate your time. I know people are going to be excited to hear this podcast and hear what you have to say, but do you have any parting shots before I cut you loose?
Well, it's just, thank you for the opportunity and nice talking to you. And, we need to go ride sometime. I've been struggling a little bit with shoulder injuries and stuff. And so I've had to kind of scale back my riding last year. And I'm still like, I wake up some mornings and can't even lift my left arm up and stuff like that.
Oh, man.
But yeah, man, sometimes if you want to do like a little, gravel roads tour or something like that, let me know.
Right on, Harold. We'll definitely have to set that up. And, the riding here locally has just been amazing so far this year. We've had a lot of thunderstorms and, the wet Central Oregon dirt. I don't think there's anything that really rivals that. But nevertheless, Harold, again, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for all the support over the past few years. And listeners, don't forget to visit their website, giantloopmoto.com, and @giantloopmoto on both Facebook and Instagram. All right, listeners, just a quick plug from me before we go. Look, I've been working with Giant Loop for about 3 years now. Great looking product, super functional, and the team that you got to hear about today on the show from Harold, they're just a pleasure to deal with. So, ringing endorsement from me. And if you guys listen to the show at all, I don't just throw those around loosely. So if you're in the market for, packing solutions for any of your motorcycles, I would highly recommend Giant Loop. Their customer service for me personally sets them apart from everybody else, but the products are great too. So again, giantloopmoto.com. Okay, I think it's time for me to get out of here. A couple more things. I've got another podcast coming out Thursday. You don't want to miss it. Sheldon and Carrie Bradlow, they're going to recap their ride through South America, which they did this year, and it was kind of sort of derailed by the COVID-19, as you might expect. So you don't want to miss that, coming out Thursday. And as always, I appreciate you guys listening. And until next time, we'll see ya.